Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Glory Glory Man United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Quinn, and joining me today to review United's frustrating 2-2 draw against Burnley and take a look at the latest in our search for an interim manager is Jerry from Cork Raids. How's it going, Jerry?
Yeah, not too bad now, Kyle. How are you?
Yeah, I'm deeply frustrated after last night. Since the beginning of November, we have dropped points to all the bottom seven in the Premier League. Uh, and yet again, it's another draw. When we eh, when a win would have taken us to fourth in the Premier League. I don't know how we keep getting these opportunities. It seems as if everyone around us keeps dropping points as well at the same time, and that makes it even more frustrating from a United point of view. That if we could just win at least one or two of these games that we've drawn, we could have been in the top four. But we just keep dropping points from winning positions, and we done so again last night. So last night, it's probably the most dominant we've been all season. 30 shots on goal, 10 on target. Burnley had 7 shots on goal, only one on target, yet they scored 2 goals. Obviously, one of those was down to a wicked deflection of Aiden Haven. But once again, United not able to score enough goals to win the game, and conceding goals far too easily, Jerry.
Yeah, I think it was just one of those frustrating nights that we've seen plenty of them throughout the month of December. Dominate the game and create loads of chances and just not take enough of them, I guess. I was happy enough with the chances we did create. On another night, you could see United going on to win 4 or 5-2. But I think the most disappointing aspect for me was the goals we conceded. I think and it comes back to the issues we have in midfield. I know it was an own goal that we conceded in the first half, but if you look back to where that goal came from, it was Casemiro being really passive in the midfield and just not tracking his runner. So it was frustrating, particularly because we could have gone fourth with a win last night, and it's just how many more chances are we going to miss, Um, but yeah, we've a lot to talk about tonight, so we'll get into it.
Yeah, I have to say, I hope last night is the last time that we will see the partnership of Ugarte and Casemiro in midfield. As you said, Casemiro didn't track the runner for the first goal, and I feel as if that's why teams are able to get at us because we're very weak in midfield. Casemiro in particular looked well off it last night. He looks every bit of his age now. I'm afraid. I know he was getting some praise earlier in the season, but he still looks like a shadow of his former self, in my opinion. And last night was an atrocious performance from him. I know Ugarte, by his standards, was okay last night. He's winning the ball a bit more,
Yeah,
but as we know, he's just not good enough on the ball at this level, and it's just a really boring midfield partnership. There's no creativity there whatsoever, and they're not doing enough to shield the defence. Albeit we have to look at Martinez for the second goal as well. It gets turned far too easily, and it is a great strike. We expect better from Licha Martinez in those situations. But yeah, I think the root of our defensive problems comes in midfield, Jerry.
definitely, and it's been that way with a long time. Even going back to Ten Hag when we had that infamous donut in midfield where everyone was just bypassing us and running straight through on our defence. And if you remember back then, we were conceding up to 20 plus shots a game. Now that kind of was shored up a little bit under Amorim, but not to the extent that where we were going out and dominating games in midfield either. And it comes down to games are won and lost in midfield, so you need to have a competitive midfield. And I know there was times under Amorim where Bruno and Casemiro did well and won their midfield battles, but every other week we're having issues there. And like you go back to the Ugarte and Casemiro partnership, there's no real creativity there. No, I do think Ugarte played pretty well last night. It was probably ironically enough, his best performance for United in about a year. Remember, he had that spell when Amorim first came in. He had one or two good games away at Liverpool and away at City as well. But I don't think he really had a look in after that under his former Sporting Lisbon coach. So it was good to see him put in a little bit of a better performance last night, but it's not enough. And you and I both know that we're going to have to go out and spend big in the summer and get in a top class midfielder or two, because that's the only way we're going to progress and get this squad up to a higher level where we should be at and where we want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no doubt about it now that the focus is going to be on rebuilding the midfield in 2026, and the sooner the better. We might even have to do get us a Bitzer type loan deal in this window if we possibly can. And I know that Ruben Neves and Conor Gallagher have been linked, and I think we need to get one of those two players because we need some help in midfield that's going to get us over the line in terms of qualifying for the Champions League, because the opportunity really is there. But I don't trust Casemiro and Ugarte at the moment now, to be honest. And I think Casemiro is really looking like for a long time now. Really, he's looked past his best, and physically he looks like he's struggling. And last night was another one of those games where you're just like, I don't think he belongs at this level anymore. He should be playing in the MLS or something like that. Um, so that's a huge concern, and I think that we need to address that in the loan market in this window if we possibly can. I know we're not going to get our number one targets in this window. I think that's clear now. But there were some slight positives last night, and that's it. Benjamin Sesko finally scoring since the Sunderland game, way back in October. He bagged a brace, and he could have had a hat trick really. He had another snapshot that he didn't quite get hold of for his hat-trick chance. Before he scored, he had a header that was going into the top corner and was saved by the goalkeeper. And I think what the key is that, you know, very few strikers are one chance, one goal men. Um, the key to a striker scoring goals is keep providing him with chances. If he gets 5 or 6 chances a game, the chance is always going to score 2 goals, and that's the key. United need to keep feeding him. I know that Fletcher talked about this in his post-match press conference and talked about showing videos to Sesko of himself saying these are the movements that you're making, and keep doing this, and the goals will come. And we saw the movement that he showed for the second goal, and it was a classy finish. Great cross from Dorgu, another player who's really improved in the final third. Where, most of the last year or so we've been complaining about Dorgu's final ball, but we've seen improvements in that. He's got 3 assists this season, and he should have had another one against Aston Villa when Kuna put that header wide. Um, yeah, so I think Dorgu and Shesko would probably be the main positives last night.
Yeah, it was a relief really to see Sesko score his 2 goals, because the longer that goes on, it really gets in the head of any striker. They thrive on goals and scoring. That's their kind of bread and butter, I suppose. And it doesn't help, I suppose, when people, the likes of Gary Neville and Tim Sherwood in particular are giving him an awful lot of criticism on Sky Sports. That's bound to get in any player's head. And he's only a young lad, and like I've said before, he's got great attributes as a striker. He's tall, he's quick, he's strong. I think the only thing he's lacking is that little bit of aggression, and a little bit of devilment to his play. But I think that'll come with experience. And once he adds that into his game, then he'll be able to mix it up with the best of them, I think. And we saw a glimpse last night as to what he can bring. He's finishing, one-touch finishing, brilliant, clinical strikes. So that first one, great run to get on the end of a beautiful ball from Bruno. And then the second one was just effortless. If someone like Van Persie or Dimitar Berbatov or someone like that scored those goals, we'd be raving about it. So it was good to see. And like you mentioned, Dorgu as well seems to be getting a little bit better with his final ball. And I think he needed that, because it took him a while to kind of settle down and really kind of show us what he can do. And I think we're starting to see little glimpses that there's a player in there. Whether that be further forward on the wing or as a left back, time will tell. But no, it was nice to see him and Sesko linking up.
Yeah, I'm glad to see Dorgu improving his final ball, and glad to see Sesko scoring goals, and how we've missed Bruno's creativity. That was a wonderful ball, as you said. And yeah, the second goal in particular was impressive from Sesko. You can see that his movement, he feints one way and then goes the other, and the ball is perfect. And then he opens up his body and just side foots it past the keeper. Yeah, I love seeing that. I'm so delighted for him as well, because it's been a hard period for him. He's, as you say, he's come under a lot of criticism from pundits and even some United fans. I mean, Chris, who does the show with me, was texting me at half time, and he was giving Shesko a stick at half time, and I was saying, "Hold your horses. I think I'm unwilling to go in on him, because I think there's a player in there. I can see he's got nice feet, and he holds the ball up well, and he gets into good areas. So I think the goals will come." And sure enough, in the second half, they arrived. Yeah, so hopefully this is the beginning of a run of games where he's scoring plenty of goals, because that'll give him huge confidence. And yeah, I suppose Burnley are one of the poorest teams in the league, and you want your striker scoring against that type of opposition, and now that he's done that, hopefully he can give him confidence in other games to score against higher level opponents as well. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, so I'm delighted for him, because he's taken a lot of stick, and it is the United number 9 and the United goalkeeper position are the two of the most pressured positions in world football, and he's all on
definitely.
his own. Like, there's nobody to deputise for him. So it's been an awful period for him, but he's come through it, and hopefully this is the beginning of a run now where he can score something like 10 goals in 20 games or something, or maybe even more than that. If he can get into double figures this season, then I'll be more than pleased. I like to see Kuna, Mambumo, and Shesko all get into double figures. I think we'd all be delighted with that in their first season at United. Um, yeah. So other positives of last night uh, are the return of the players from injury that we saw. Bruno started the game, and he came off, and I know Fletcher said that he didn't like taking Bruno off, but it was agreed beforehand that his minutes had to be managed given his injury. And then Manu came on as well. No one will be more happy about Amarim sacking than Kobe, and he returned from injury last night and got his opportunity. Um, and then Mason Mount came on as well. He'd been out for a couple of weeks, and so we're starting to get players back. Afcon is getting into the final stages now, which all United fans will be delighted to see. And I think two of our players are playing against each other in the quarterfinals, so one of them will definitely be coming home on Friday. Um, yeah, and then Shea Lacey come off the bench last night, and I have to talk about that. Uh, did you think it was in, Jerry? Because I thought it was in, and I thought it was going to be another one of those Makeda moments.
Yeah, I thought it was in. I was just about to jump up off my seat and start celebrating. I thought, oh, what an introduction this is going to be. But it was so unlucky just to bounce back off the bar. I think it must have been inches or millimeters away from being a spectacular goal and being a spectacular beginning to life in the first team for young Shea Lacey. As United fans, I think we've been blessed over the years with seeing brilliant debuts from youngsters. The likes of Makeda and Danny Welbeck spring to mind as well, and there's been so many others over the years too. So it would have been nice to have another one to add, but he looks born to play in the first team, and I'm excited to see more from him. I think he'll provide good competition as well on that right wing with Mbumo and Ahmed when they're back.
Yeah, he had an effort that was on target against Villa. He had an effort last night to hit the bar, obviously, and then another one that kind of was close to the target, but was just a wee bit off. Um, he seems to he's certainly not lacking in confidence, and he seems to take on the shot. Uh, what I would also like to see from him is to provide for his teammates. His first instinct always seems to be to shoot, and he does seem to have a good shot on him with that left foot. But I would also like to see him, trying to pick people out as well. I want to see a bit of variety from him as he gets his
Yeah,
chances. But yeah, I expect whoever the interim's going to be, I expect to see Shea Lacey to get more minutes, and Kobe Manu is definitely going to be off the leash now and get his opportunities. And I'm sure it's just a relief for him, because it's been a dreadful period. And I'm glad that I probably said on this show, definitely said it privately to friends, that if it was a choice between Amarim and Kobe Manu, it's Kobe Manu all day long. And I'm glad that Amarim has departed without Manu departing. I'm so relieved that we managed to keep him at the club, and hopefully he never gets frozen out like that ever again. And we all know what a quality player he is. He's done it for United in so many big games, and hopefully he can resurrect his career now, and get back into the United starting 11. Because of course, Darren Fletcher played a four at the back last night. 4-3-2-1 is what it looked like, and with that formation in mind, and I expect the midfield is going to be Casemiro, Menu, and Bruno for the most part. But obviously Casemiro is going to be a bit of an issue. So this is why I would like to sign Conor Gallagher in January, if at all possible, on loan. Get a look at him for 6 months, and then we'll decide whether we want to keep him or not. What do you think, Jerry?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that as well, because I don't think you can rely going the full season on Casemiro as that deepest midfielder. I think we saw last night, even for the second goal, it kind of went a little bit unnoticed, where the ball got through to that guy, who Anthony was it that scored the second goal for Burnley. So just as that pass was played through to him, Casemiro had the opportunity to press, and he didn't do it. He just seemed so passive in the midfield. So I would be of the same opinion as you to try and get someone like Conor Gallagher, for example. Doesn't have to be him, but he's seemingly possibly going to be available, whether that be on a permanent or on a loan deal. No, I think the wisest move for United would be to try and let the window maybe wind down and go late in the January transfer window, and maybe try and organise a loan deal from Atletico. We've seen what he can do at Chelsea. He brings a lot of energy and legs to the midfield, and he's good on the ball as well. Now, he's by no means the best midfielder out there, but as an option, I'd definitely be open to bringing in a Conor Gallagher or someone like that.
Yeah, he seems to be the name that's talked about the most in this window. And like he alluded to, Atletico Madrid want to sell him, but United don't want to buy him in this window, and they would prefer a loan deal. So if we can just wind the clock down to the 31st of January, then maybe Atletico will be more willing to loan him out to get him off the wage bill, so they can bring somebody else in. So we'll see how that one pans out, because we need to get a body in. Like 3 seasons ago when we brought in Sabitzer and Weghorst, we needed 2 players because Christian Eriksen got injured in that January, and we needed to bring somebody in. And Ronaldo left that winter, and we needed to bring somebody in. And even though Weghorst wasn't exactly an ideal option, as it turned out, but Sabitzer I thought was a really good player. I would have liked United to keep him, but they didn't. Maybe it was because he missed the last 6 games of the season through injury, and thought, given his age,
he
there's a
had a
bit of a
knee
risk.
injury, didn't he? Yeah, he got a bit of a knee injury, and I think United decided against making it permanent. But he definitely made an impact. I like Sabitzer as well.
Yeah, there's loans to be had out there if we can explore those and try to find someone who fits the profile that we want. But we'll have to wait and see in that one. I don't think it's going to be any permanent transfers, and I think that was one of the bones of contention with Amarim and Jason Wilcox, that there wasn't going to be any signings in this window. And we know that they also fell out over the system as well. I have to say, Jerry, I thought Amarim would be here to the end of the season, no matter what, unless things got really bad. But I didn't think that he'd be sacked while we were 6 in the table. But clearly, it's about personal relationships have broken down, and that's why he ended up going. But I have to admit, Amarim's period in charge has been, statistically, it's been one of the worst in United's history. So I can't say I'm all that sad about it, to be honest.
Yeah, look, it's been a difficult time, I suppose, in the last 12 months following United, because I think we were all excited when Omar Berrada and Jason Wilcox decided to go out and headhunt Ruben Amorim and try and bring him in from Sporting. He looked to be a great up-and-coming young manager. which was the case. He achieved a lot at a short period of time in Portugal. So there was bound to be plenty of excitement amongst the United fans when we were bringing him in. But I think you're just waiting for things to ignite, and he had this famous back three system, which is not really a Man United system historically. You've had select managers play it in the past, such as Louis van Gaal, and it didn't work, and he had to change. So you'd be hoping that at the time that Ruben would pay heed to that. And I liked his braveness at trying his best to have things work out and stick to his guns. But all the top managers have to have a plan B, and they have to be adaptable. And I don't think we saw enough of that. And it was disappointing in the end because, like I said, you're hopeful that things are going to click and next week things will get better and we'll go on a run. But it just never happened. We were waiting for a run to come together, and I think the closest we got under Amorim was that run in October where we won 3 in a row. And then you're thinking, no, this is it. You have to kick on from here, and we just didn't do it. And there was signs of progress. All the data showed that we were better off this season than last season statistically. But I just think it was taking too long to come together. And Ineos and Jason Wilcox had to make a decision. Were they going to stick with Amorim and make these small steps forward, or try and get rid and bring someone else in who can try and get us Champions League? I don't know what your opinion of it is, but I don't know. I think it's probably the right decision in the long run. Maybe we can try and bring someone in, such as an interim, and try and get in that top 4 or 5. And 5th place is likely to get Champions League this year, so it's still all up for grabs. Still a lot to play for this season.
Yeah, I think the first sign that he might not be the right one was the in-game management in the Europa League final. I know we tossed off the Premier League last season, so we kind of let all those bad results go because we were focusing on winning the Europa League. But his in-game management in that final was so bad. And then the Grimsby defeat was a really, really low moment. Which he could have been sacked after that, to be honest. And as you say, he had the 3-game winning run, and one of those was at Anfield. First time in 10 years United had done that, and I thought this could be the spark to kickstart Amorim's tenure as United boss. But since then, since that 3-game run, they won 3 of their next 11 matches, which is absolutely not good enough, and it's dropping points to all of the bottom 7. Another low point was the first time in Premier League history that United lost at home to 10 men, and he kept 3 defenders on against 1 striker rather than having a plan B. Then against Newcastle, he played a back 4. We won the game, even though it wasn't pretty. And in the next game against one of the worst teams in Premier League history, he reverts back to the back 3 again. And again, I think that resulted in an argument between him and Jason Wilcox. What happened there that night? I was there for the Wolves game, and it was an absolutely dire performance. And again, why would you want to match Wolves' formation? Like, they had 2 points all season. Man United should just be going out there and beating them. So ultimately, that was the beginning of the end for him. And after he probably knew, by the sounds of things, he knew that he was already gone even before the Leeds game kicked off. And he played the usual back 3 again, and they drew again. But that result didn't matter. He was going to be sacked anyway. And then the extraordinary press conference then after that game, which was probably viewed as insubordination, where he was saying, I am the manager. I'm not the head coach of Manchester United. I may not be a household name like Thomas Tuchel or Jose Mourinho or Jurgen Klopp, but I am the manager, and I deserve the respect of being the manager of United. And I think it's since then come out that Jason Wilcox had told him that he doesn't have the managerial pedigree of the big names, which is an extraordinary thing to say to a guy that you hired. If you don't think that he has the pedigree, then why did you bring him in? So we've seen this before from Wilcox, where he was telling Ten Hag what to do as well, in
Mhm.
terms how you should set up his teams. So I'm starting to get worried that there's a wee bit too much interference coming from Jason Wilcox, and quite rightfully, he's been scrutinised now by the media. And I'm not convinced by him or Omar Barada, to be honest. Um, on Jim Radcliffe, definitely not. The things that he's done off the pitch, and he is apparently involved in these decisions too. And I don't think that is right, because he knows nothing about football. And he's the man that said back in October in an interview with the Times podcast, Times Business podcast, that he was going to give Amrim 3 years. Well, he got 3 months in the end, so that was clearly bullshit. Um, so the only person that I really like in terms of the hierarchy is Christopher Vavale, to be honest, because he has a
Mhm.
track record at other clubs. And somebody else who didn't want United to bring in Ruben Amorim was Dan Ashworth, and he ultimately lost his job of because he felt that way. And he probably feels vindicated now. So I have to be honest. I'm not loving Ineos on their project at the moment, Cherry.
Yeah, look, I suppose they're kind of under the microscope now more than ever because of everything that's gone on in the last few weeks, and especially since Amarim has been sacked. Um, I think every fan of any football club doesn't want their owners getting involved in on pitch decisions, and sporting directors having an influence on managerial decisions. Um, no one wants to see that, and you'd be hoping that's not the case long term. Now, Jason Wilcox will probably say that he had to, as part of his job, have a word with Amorim and try get him to change, because he was proving to be very, very stubborn. And I know a coach's opinion is sacrament as well. They should be left to their own devices. But maybe as owners, Ineos felt that they needed to step in and do something, because, like I said, there's still an awful lot up for grabs this season, and it's either change now, or keep going the way we are, and keep dropping silly points, and losing winning positions, and not progressing up the table. So maybe I can see it from their point of view as well. Now, obviously, I don't want Jim Ratcliffe making any decisions in terms of on the pitch. I think he's the owner or part owner of the club, and he should just stick to off the field matters. And yeah, it's a complicated one. As for Dan Ashworth, that was a really weird situation from start to finish. They waited all those months while he was on gardening leave at Newcastle to bring him in, and then didn't sack him just a matter of months into his tenure at United. Now, I know there was a disagreement about Ruben Amorim, and I think from what I've heard, Ashworth presented a list of English proven managers, or Premiership experienced managers, should I say. And I think, just from little reports and rumours from what I've heard, he liked Graham Potter and possibly Gareth Southgate as well. So they definitely wouldn't have been on my list to replace Eric Ten Hag at that stage, and they're definitely not on my list now either to replace Ruben Amorim.
Yeah, absolutely not. Now, Dan Ashworth might have been right about Ruben Amorim, but if it's true that he was, you know, he wanted Gareth Southgate and Graham Potter, um, then his opinion isn't worth much either, to be honest. But we don't know if that's right or not. Maybe they were just making that link because he'd worked with those two guys before.
Yeah,
Um, I
possibly.
don't
Yeah.
know, but yeah, they spent 6 months chasing him and had to pay money to get him. And then 5 months in the job, they had to pay him off. Look at all the money Ineos have wasted now as well on giving Ten Hag a new contract and sacking him and his coaches. You know, buying Dan Ashworth from Newcastle and sacking him, having to pay him off. Buying Ruben Amorim and his contract with Sport Lisbon, sacking him and his coaches. All that money could have been spent on a world class player.
Hmm.
So doesn't give me a lot of faith in these guys. I know with Barada, as we know from um, November 2024, he was the guy who went out to meet Amorim in Portugal for talks before giving him the job. So it seemed like the decision to bring Amorim in was very much his. So he's going to have to own this as well. Um,
Yeah.
and to be honest, out of Ashworth, Omar Barada, and Jason Wilcox, the only person who had experience of doing his role at a previous club was Dan Ashworth, and they got rid of him. Omar
Hmm.
Barada's never been a CEO before. Jason Wilcox has very, very limited experience being a director of football, only at Southampton for about 6 months. So
Yes.
these guys are new to these jobs, and they're arguably at the biggest club in the world. So they've still got a lot to prove. Now, a caveat everything I've said by this is that you're not always going to get your first managerial appointment right. So we'll give them a bit of grace, but the next one absolutely has to be right. And I suppose with that in mind, it's probably the right call to bring in an interim to buy time before making a decision in the summer. But United do need to get into Europe and probably Champions League. It'd be really, really good for United to not only be able to offer Champions League football to potential signings, but the revenue that it brings in as well. So we need a competent interim that's going to get us into the top five. Um, and then there's going to be a lot of managers available in the summer, a lot of big names potentially. Tuchel uh, could leave England in the summer after the World Cup. Luis Enrique could be available. He's not going to sign a new deal at PSG, according to Bild. And Nagelsmann could leave the Germany role in the summer. So I am fully on board with the decision to get an interim and then, buy their time to making a decision. But it feels like deja vu, doesn't it? I think we've been here before with Ranić as an interim and then bringing in Ten Hag in the summer. So we're back here again. And another similar thing is a Portuguese coach that fell out with the hierarchy, was sacked, and then potentially bringing in Ollie as an interim. We've been here before as well.
That's right.
Um, so United, typical of United, the only interims they seem to look at are people that have been players for the club. All the links that have been made in the last few days, you'd think they were looking down the squad list of the 06-07 squad at United. Even Rooney was
Yeah.
mentioned as well. Um, but Solskjaer seems to be the favourite at the moment. It seems to be between Solskjaer and Carrick, or maybe both. Let's see.
Hmm.
But apparently, Barada and Wilcox will be impressed with Fletcher so far. So they want to see how the Brighton game turns out first before they make their final decision. Is what I'm gathering. But I don't think Solskjaer obviously has a lot more experience than Darren Fletcher, and Carrick has experience as well. So Darren Fletcher to the end of the season, when he's only ever coached the under 18s, I think that's a massive gamble. But we know that Ollie can come in as an interim and have a big impact. As interim manager before, he won 14 of his first 19 matches. So out of all of them, I think I'd probably choose Ollie out of the names that are linked. But then again, Van Nistelrooy's been linked as well, and he had a successful caretaker period, as did Carrick. What Carrick have 2 wins and a draw, um,
Yeah.
two, a win against Arsenal, a win away against Villarreal, and a draw against Chelsea. And
Yeah.
so he probably has the most perfect record out of any United manager, Carrick. Um, but remember, Ollie came as a team as well, though. He had Carrick and McKenna underneath him, and Mike Phelan as well. And so Solskjaer apparently is just a bit of he's a man manager. He's not really a coach, so he'd be looking to bring in people to work underneath him. And Carrick would probably be one of the names that I'd want. So yeah, I'd probably go with Ollie to the end of the season. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I'd echo that as well. I think I'd be in the team of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well. Just looking back to the impact he made back in December 2018 when we went on that winning run. I think, what did you say, it was 14 wins out of his first 20 games or something like that. That was a
19
crazy
games,
run.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, it was unbelievable. And I think it brought a lot of happiness back to United supporters again for the first time in a long time. Um, so whether or not he could come in and repeat that is probably unlikely, but if he can just get the team winning and just on a better run of form between now and the end of the season. That's all we ask for. Um, just to win some games and score some goals and try and go on a run, because I think the league is so tight. From fourth place downwards, 5 or 6 wins out of 10 games, we'll say, would do wonders and would see us skyrocket up the league. So I would be in favour of Ollie coming back. No, I wouldn't be opposed to Michael Carrick either. He did a good job of steadying the ship when Ollie was sacked back in 2021. So either of them, I'd be happy enough with either of them. But we'll have to see. I don't see Darren Fletcher getting it long term, or not long term, but for the rest of the season. Like you said, it's probably too much of a gamble. No, I do. I like the way he carries himself, and he speaks really well. Does Darren Fletcher, but it's probably a little bit too much of a gamble. I think we need someone of the ilk of Solskjaer to come in and try and get us up the table and winning games as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think it was reported in the Telegraph that Solskjaer has said with his recent contacts with United, the interview process, if you want to call it that, he said that he can get United's attacking players all firing: Ahmad, Mbeumo, Bruno, Sesko, and Kuna, and that definitely does whet the appetite, because we've seen some of the. I know we didn't win anything under Ollie, we should have, but United were scoring lots of goals. How many times did we score 5 in a game under Ollie?
Yeah,
Remember
we
the
got
9
a
that we
lot of.
got against?
Sorry, we got a lot of late winners as well. There was often times where we'd go a goal down in the first half, and then we turn it around and come back and win with a late goal or whatever. So the spirit under Ollie was very good as well. So if he can get this team really together and get the spirits high, then I think we can do something. Even the FA Cup is there as well at the moment. So why not go on a run on that as well?
Yeah. Yeah, remember, just you mentioned their late winners and Ollie. Cavani springs to mind against Southampton. Remember the double that he got, and to turn that one around when we were 2-1 down.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I remember the 9-0 against Southampton under Ollie. That was crazy, wasn't it? That was a real enjoyable night. I would love one of those right now. Um, yeah, do you remember the 3-0 away to Tottenham with Ronaldo and Cavani
We
up
take
front?
any win at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, we would, because we're so short of
Brilliant, yeah.
any wins.
I think ironically he paid the fee for that. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, there seems to be a bit of a delay for some reason. But we'll continue on. Now another frustrating aspect.
Sorry.
Another frustrating aspect. Last night, the goal that was ruled out, it frustrated Darren Fletcher and it really pissed me off. It wasn't really much of a foul. Kyle Walker goes down very easily, and if you look what else is going on during the set piece, the person Casemiro is more of a foul than Martinez on Walker. Eden Heaven was being wrestled with. But not surprised that they stuck with the on-field decision. Any excuse to stick with the on-field decision in English football. The VAR never jumps in unless it's a really, really obvious mistake. So I expected that. So see if the on-field referee had given the goal, they would have stuck with the goal as well. For me, it was a good goal. I was shocked off, and we seem to have a history of having goals ruled out at Turf Moor. I remember Johnny Evans had a goal ruled out a couple of seasons ago at Turf Moor. I think Hoyland was deemed to have been fouling the goalkeeper or something. And Maguire had a goal chalked off at Turf Moor maybe 5 years ago as well. So things didn't go away last night, and 2 goal line clearances too as well. Let's not forget. So We
Yeah,
absolutely battered them last night, didn't we? And we're unlucky not to come away with the points.
yeah. I think we had something like 30 shots on goal throughout the night and hit the post twice. You know, Bruno hit the post and Shea Lacey hit the crossbar. And then you had Cunha off the line and Dorgo off the line as well. And we had plenty of other chances as well throughout the night, including that goal ruled out, which was, it was 50-50 really. Like, I thought Kyle Walker went down way too easily. And no, I know you can't really put your arms around someone in today's game, but it was very harsh. And like you said, there was a lot of wrestling going on that particular set piece. So it could have gone either way. And unfortunately, we came out the wrong side of it. And then there was a header in the second half from Aidan Heaven. It was about 3 yards out. I don't know how he didn't get it on target, but it kind of came off his shoulder in the end. So we had more than enough chances to win 2 or 3 games there, which is good to see. It was nice to see us attacking and playing a little bit more fluidly. I thought the tempo was a little bit slow in the first half, but maybe in the last 10-15 minutes we kind of got more into it, and that continued into the second half. And as soon as Bruno comes off, the tempo drops again. So I think that was a disappointing aspect, that we failed to see it out from a winning position.
Yeah, so many times this season that we failed to see it out from winning position, and last night was no exception. But yeah, Ian Haven should have. That was a free header. He had to do better there, as you said. He came off his
Mhm.
shoulder. Yeah, just not good enough, really. He would have redeemed himself if he'd have scored that. Although he was a bit unfortunate, and it was I, f- you know, fault Casemiro for that goal more than anything. Didn't track the runner.
Yeah,
Heaven had
yeah.
to be aware of the man in the middle, and the man who was going to cross the ball. So he was caught in two minds, and he went to the crosser, and then it just ricocheted off him and looped over the keeper. Um, so
He's a good player, though, isn't he, Heaven? I like him so far, and he kind of reminds me in a way of Wes Brown when Wes Brown was a youngster. He was a full-blooded defender, and he was kind of prone to the odd accident as well. He scored quite a few own goals early on in his career, but he ended up having a brilliant career at United thereafter. So Heaven kind of has a little bit of that about him, where you kind of know he's going to be a really good player, um, but he's still learning, and own goals and deflections and stuff are going to happen, and it's all part of the game.
yeah, and Wes Brown's career peaked when he played at right back for a Champions League winning team and provided the
Yeah.
assist for the goal in the final. If you didn't have him can go on to reach that level, then I'll be more than happy. We can
Yes.
only dream now of a
We
United
can only
team winning
dream.
the
Yeah.
Champions League.
Oh, it feels so long away, doesn't it? We need to get in the Champions League first.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Um, but as David Ornstein himself said in an interview yesterday, the things can change very quickly in football. You can go from sixth to winning the title in maybe just a couple of years if you get your recruitment and your managerial recruitment right. And so this next appointment is very, very important. Um, so assuming that it is Ollie who gets the job, we don't know that yet. There's no confirmation of that. They're taking their time even on the interim manager recruitment. Um, assuming Ollie can get us into the Champions League spots, hopefully he can. All we need now is the we're not his goal is not going to be long term because it's only going to be half a season or less. His goal is to get new manager bounce that's going to take us into Europe, and then hopefully we can get one of the best coaches around it. Now, Fabrizio Romano has been saying that United are looking for a coach with Premier League experience. Does that then rule out Luis Enrique? Because it shouldn't for me. Because if the best coach in Europe is available, United have to go and get him. I don't care if he's managing the Premier League or not. He's won the treble with Barcelona and PSG. Um, the only managers that are in his bracket are Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, and they're not going to come to United for obvious reasons. Ancelotti, you might say, but he's managing Brazil and probably semi-retired now from club football. So Luis Enrique is the best option you can possibly get, and
Yeah.
even if he doesn't have Premier League experience, United should go and get him.
No, definitely. Yeah, I agree 100% with you. I think we've spoken about Luis Enrique in the past, myself and you. Um, he's, in my opinion, he's the best coach in Europe at the moment, and I just love his style of play. That PSG team last season were a joy to watch on the way to winning the Champions League. So, and it's not as if he had a team of superstars. I think he went in there and he got rid of some of the big names, your likes of Neymar and Mbappe and people like that, and he signed kind of more younger players, and turned them into some really top talent, the likes of Desiree Doué there, um, Barcola and people like that were excellent last season. And I think he plays a kind of a 4-3-3 as well, doesn't he? So that'd really suit United and be along the lines of the United way of playing. I think if there is any hope, even an inkling of getting Luis Enrique, then you have to go all out for him. I think there was talk a couple of years ago. Andy Mitten was saying that he had spoken to Luis Enrique in the past. I think it was before Ten Hag took over in 2022. And Enrique did say that he would be interested in becoming United manager one day, but I don't think it aligned for him at the time because he was still manager of Spain, and the Spanish national team were preparing for the World Cup, which was in mid-season, if you remember, in Qatar that time. So the stars didn't align, unfortunately. So maybe one day. I'd love that to be the summer, but I know it's highly unlikely at this stage. And then after Enrique, then you're looking at people like Nagelsmann or Xavi or someone like that. Ancelotti, like you said, he's in his mid to late 60s now, I believe. So he's a legendary manager, and he's up there with Sir Alex, I think, with what he's won, Champions Leagues, and he's won the league in all the big countries. Um, I would not say no to him. You know, if there was a chance of Ancelotti coming, then I'd be open to it. But I don't know. It's a big decision, and it's probably going to be the biggest decision Ineos have to make um, in the coming years. You know, if they get this right, then Man United could be on the way back to the top, but they need to get it right.
Yeah, I think everybody is a risk apart from Luis Enrique as long as he's backed appropriately. We don't want to be in a situation where we actually bring in Enrique and then he wants out because he's not getting enough players. And United have got form for doing that. So if he's going to come in, he has to be backed. Um, but the good news is that there's in terms of our forward line, there's plenty to work with there for a new manager. We just on the back
Yeah,
line, I know we're conceding goals, but there's a lot of good centre halves there. I think maybe we need to look at fullback again potentially.
yeah,
Um, yeah, Diogo Dallo for me has been at the club too long, 8 years now. I think he's had long enough. And what's really interesting is that Solskjaer loaned out Dallo to AC Milan and bought Wan Bissaka. Now we've seen in
that's right.
recent
Yeah,
years Dallo has just been a regular starter for United, week in and week out, and he's hardly ever injured. Will Solskjaer then drop him as soon as he comes in, or will he change his mind on the player? Generally, managers don't change their mind on players. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. And Mazarahi is obviously an option there as well. When I keep forgetting about him because he was injured for so long, and then he's been away at Afcon. But
yeah, and the fact that
yeah,
he
and
was
we
playing
know,
a lot of football. Mazraoui, sorry, was playing a lot of football in a back three as well. So you'd actually kind of almost forget that he actually is a fullback by trade. So I think he's a far better footballer than Dallo is. So I think he should be first choice as right back if and when Ollie comes in, or Carrick, or whoever.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I absolutely would have Mazrahi as my first choice, and given Solskjaer's past with Dallo, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Now we know that he loves Luke Shaw, but this is an 18 Luke Shaw, and I have to mention last night the beautiful ball that Mason Mount played over the top, and Luke Shaw didn't seem to have didn't couldn't control the ball, and it went out for a goal kick. And I think that was all down to his mobility. So he
Yeah,
looks like a player that he's had a lot of injuries. He's 30, and given his injuries, he probably has the body of a 34-year-old. Um, and he's not able to play. He was never selected as a wing back for that reason, I would say.
Mhm.
He's always because he's always at risk of breaking down again, even though he has stayed fit for the majority of the season. But he played left back last night, and yeah, he's not getting forward at the same pace as what he used to like 5, 10 years ago.
No.
But last night that was. Did you see Mason Mount's face whenever he played that beautiful ball and Luke Shaw couldn't control it, and Mount was like this here? That said it all
Yeah,
for me. Um, so for me, the likes of Dallow and Shaw need to be phased out.
definitely. Yeah. I think both players have been at the club probably too long now at this stage, and they're not going to get any better. I think we've seen the best of Luke Shaw, particularly as a fullback. I don't think he's going to improve in that area anymore. So it's probably time to move him on in the summer. And the same goes for Dallo. Now, I would be open to keeping Dallo as a squad player. I think he's a handy kind of utility player to dip in and out, but you can't have him as your starting right back at Man United if you want to get back challenging for the top honours. I don't think he's good enough. Um, so whether we move him on or not, that remains to be seen. But neither of them are good enough to be starting for Man United in the long term. So I think their days are numbered, I'd say.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. It all depends on what the new manager thinks. But yeah, as I said, Ollie doesn't seem to be a fan of Dallo, or at least he wasn't 5 years ago. And yeah, Shaw, I think, we've seen the best of him. So hopefully, but there are some green shoots when it comes to Dorgu. He's definitely, obviously, been working on his final ball in training, and it's paying dividends at the moment. He probably, as I said, he should have more assists than he's got because one that's missed that stands out is that Kuna header at Villa Park. Dorgu would have got an assist there too if he'd have buried that free header. But
And
yeah,
he could have
that
scored a
cross
couple
for
more goals.
Sesko was
Sorry, he could have scored a goal as well last
yes.
night, and he was so close to getting that one over the line. It was actually a nice finish, but the Burnley defender did really well to get back and hook it off the line, didn't he?
Yes, he did, and Dorgu had a goal ruled out against Wolves for offside.
Yeah,
Mm. Yeah, do you
sadly,
remember
yeah.
he hit remember all the way back in the first game of the season? He hit the post against Arsenal from a long
Yeah,
distance. That would
yeah.
have been a memorable goal if that went in. Uh, I have to mention last night, Kyle Walker also stamped on Patrick Dorgu, and
That's right. Yeah.
he quickly realised Walker what he had done, and he was all lifting Dorgu off the ground and patting him on the back. He had realised that I could be in trouble here, so he acted a wee bit there. By
Yeah,
he
he should have
acted a
been
wee bit
sent
of
off.
empathy there to try and get off it.
Mm.
Yeah, for me that's a red card because what he did was easily avoidable. It was a deliberate act, in my opinion. But
Mhm.
yeah, United should have won the game last night. They absolutely dominated from start to finish. 30 shots on goal. Yeah, that's probably the most for very, very long time. You probably have to go all the way back to Ollie's time in charge. The last time we had 30 shots on goal. Now, we've had 30 shots on our goal under Ten Hag. Brentford springs to mind.
Yeah,
But I suppose the thing is when it comes to interim managers is that they have a wee bit of freedom. They just let the handbrake off and let the team go and play. And that's kind of the upside to having an interim, that he's not under pressure. He's not playing for he's not there to win things long term. He's there to get short term results, and he kind of takes the pressure off him a wee bit. So I think Solskjaer in a way is almost perfect to be your manager from January to May. To get results. So I think that's probably the the ideal solution at the moment. But
yeah,
Van Nistelrooy is still being talked about by Andy Minton. Could you? How about this? Solskjaer as manager and Van Nistelrooy as assistant manager. Now Sesko couldn't fail, could he, with those two in charge?
yeah. Geez, both were unbelievable strikers back in their day, so I think he'd definitely learn a thing or two from the two of them. So, and it could happen. You never know. There has been rumours of like a couple of ex-players being brought in, as part of a team, and they can do it together. But I don't know. We'll just have to see. I don't think there'll be any decision made until Monday at the earliest.
Yeah, at the earliest we'll find out on Sunday after the game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the problem is all these guys want to be number one. Will any of them be willing to be the number two? I know Johnny Evans will be willing to be number two, obviously because he's never been a manager before. But anyone who's already been a manager probably will not be looking to be number two. But Carrick has a good relationship with Ollie, so maybe. But he
Yeah,
wants to be number one as well, I would say, and Van Nistelrooy too.
yeah. I wouldn't rule anything out at the moment, but
The thing is that
sorry, go on.
all of them, all of the names being talked about have all been a caretaker manager at United before, and they've all had good records as caretaker manager. So it's exciting no matter who comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime Ranić, I suppose, is an exception. Most of the time, we're looking for an interim. We're always looking for a legend. Whereas you've seen the likes of Chelsea bringing Gus Hiddink and Rafa Benitez. Do you think United lack imagination? When it comes to bringing in interim managers, they all seem to go for a legend more times than not.
Possibly, but we went down that route with Ragnick, and it was an absolute disaster from start to finish. I think we played 45 minutes against Crystal Palace in his opening game, and after that, it just went downhill. Remember, he was meant to bring all this Gegen pressing type, high energy type football, but just never worked. And I still have nightmares about that awful 4-2-2 formation that he tried to implement. It was boring, and it just did not excite me. So if we are to go down the interim route, then I'd be quite happy to go back to an ex-legend like Ollie or Carrick or even Rude or someone like that. I've even heard Roy Keane's name being brought up in the last few days, but I'm not sure how that would go down.
That would be a gamble for different reasons. If you want a blow up, then he's the man.
Definitely.
Because some of these current players will not be of his taste.
Definitely not. And football is different now than when he last managed as well. So what worked in probably wouldn't work now. And I love Roy Keane, but I don't think he's the man for the job at this current time. So I'm just hoping that we see maybe Ollie or someone come in, and whoever does come in has a great squad to choose from, because we're going to have all these players back from the African Cup, the likes of Diallo and Mbeumo and Mazraoui. So they're coming in at the right time, and they'll have an awful lot to work with. So I'm quite optimistic that we can make something and salvage the season now.
Well, assuming that it is Ollie, he's the favourite at the moment, right? Like the last time he was in charge, he had Kieran McKenna, Michael Carrick, and Mike Phelan. Now he's not going to be able to bring that group together again because Kieran McKenna is otherwise occupied, at Ipswich. Don't know if he lost Mike Phelan again or not. He might have to put together a new team, and we know that he is close friends with Roy Keane. So, what do you think, Roy as assistant? Is that still too much of a gamble, or would you like to see that?
I think it'd really give the fans a huge lift if something like that happened. I mean, the optimism and the excitement would go through the roof. But I don't see it currently. I think Roy is happy enough doing what he's doing on the overlap with Gary Neville and as a pundit on Sky Sports. So as nice as it would seem, I don't think it's realistic at the moment. But you never know. I wouldn't rule anything out.
The thing is with United as well is that there's so many legends to choose from. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Ryan Giggs or other people who've managed before, like Phil Neville and Yap Stam. There's so
Yeah.
many Steve Bruce. There's so many legends who have become managers, and they would
And
be.
Giggs did well. Giggsy did well,
available.
and Giggsy did well in his spell as caretaker manager back when David Moyes was sacked as well. So we have form for this caretaker thing, and usually, bar Ragnick, it goes well and it has an impact. So hopefully it'll be the same this time.
Yeah, he had those 4 games at the end of the season after Moyes was sacked. Yeah, and it was most it was a 2 wins, a draw, and a defeat or something. I think it was.
Yeah, something like that.
I remember a win against Hull at Old Trafford where there were a couple of debuts that night, and then he brought himself on, I think, as well,
Yeah,
which was
that game.
which is
Yeah,
an
that game
interesting
reminds me of
dynamic. But
James Wilson. Remember James Wilson, the striker? He scored on his debut.
yeah, yeah, when there's a young kid Lawrence as well who made his debut in that game. Um,
Yeah,
um, yeah, James Wilson. He was liked by Van Gaal. I remember he started against Liverpool in a 3-0 win in December 2014, but
yeah,
didn't make the grade long term and has ended up playing lower down the leagues. And I remember you posted up that he's 30 now. God, that's crazy, isn't it? When you remember, it doesn't feel that long ago that he was 18. James Wilson now he's 30. Crazy
yeah.
how time
Where did
flies.
the year go? Flies. Yeah, absolutely flies.
Okay then. We shall wrap it up there for today. And United got a big few games ahead. Tough FA Cup third round tie against Brighton. We could have got a lot easier game than that. You're always hoping for like a fifth tier team or something in the third round. Not a top half Premier League side that are a bit of a bogey team for United, albeit we beat them 4-2 in the most recent clash. And then we've got the small matter of City and Arsenal. But tell you what, I've already been thinking that Ollie had a really good record against Guardiola when he was the United manager. So
Yeah.
hopefully, if he comes in, and this could be his first game as well. So and City are faltering at the moment. I think they
Yeah.
have had 3 draws in a row. Um, yeah, I always love to get one over on them because they think that United is going to be an easy 3 points every time we play them, and it's half the time it's not, and we beat them, and they're left with egg on their faces. So yeah, I love to United to win that game, and we need the points right now. Be so typical of United as well to drop all these points to the bottom 7 and then get like 4 points against City and Arsenal.
Yeah, could happen. I wouldn't rule it out, especially if Ollie or someone like that is back for the City game, then we have a great chance of beating them because their form has been so poor in recent weeks that at a packed Old Trafford, and the crowd are up for it, you wouldn't see us, you wouldn't see them beating us. We could easily go out there and get the win. So fingers crossed. It'd be a huge statement victory for whoever comes in.
Yeah, you know they're expected to beat us. Uh, We should just go out there and attack, get on the front foot, and they don't like that when teams do that to them. They don't like when teams come out and attack them, and we can go out and score a couple of early goals that'll really shake them. And
Mhm.
yeah, it's crucial. How we start. We have to score first, and if we manage to
Yeah,
do that, then we gives ourselves some hope of getting a result. But yeah, so it remains to be seen who's going to be in charge of that game. Uh, I just wish they would make a decision. I understand them taking their time over the permanent manager's role, but you know, usually clubs don't take this long to decide on an interim. You know, well, come on, guys, make a decision, and
yeah.
because this remaining 5 months of the season is really important, not just for this season, but for next season as well. So come on, they need to make a choice, whoever it's going to be. So we shall wrap it up there for today. Please smash like on the video if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify or Apple, and get lots of your comments in, guys, and I'll get replying to as many of those as possible. And let me know who you want to be interim manager and who you want as permanent manager, and let me know who you want United to sign in the window if and keep it realistic though. Don't be telling us that you want to sign Mbappe or anything like that. Where it's going to be more realistically, it's going to be like Ruben Neves or Conor Gallagher, someone like that. But probably going to be towards the end of the window. So Jerry, it's been a pleasure as always having you on.
Great to be on again, Kyle. I enjoyed that one, and hopefully we find out soon who the interim is going to be, and we start picking up a bit of form.
Yeah, absolutely. Come on, United. All right, I'll see you later.
See you later. Thanks.